this light on, then we'll go right back to Mr. Stokes, and then we'll vote on this particular issue and move on. Because I think we're talking, saying the same things over and over. Some of the things.
I'll just mention this information. When the information regarding the feasibility study was presented to us, never once did you all ask what we were looking for. Never once did you come to us prior to conducting your feasibility study did you ask us what is it that we were looking for. So based on the fact that you didn't ask us what we were looking for, I assume that you knew how to conduct a feasibility study. We actually had to, the meeting that I was in, Hinds County actually had to tell you, because you asked me, what is it that you're looking for? We actually had to tell you what it was that we were looking for. And since that meeting, I think that was back in, what was?
That was back in, November.
We have not heard from you all.
I know you got to move on, but let me just, anytime I'm being attacked, my credibility is being attacked. Just do want to just mention this real fast. That meeting was just to get your input, to see how you felt about where we were moving, if you had any suggestions, and that was it. And we really have a good product that we're planning on presenting to you in the future.
All right, thank you for your comment. We're going to try to stick to the subject. We're going to go to Mr. Fisher, then Mr. Stokes, then we'll vote and move on.
I think Ms. Calhoun covered some of the topics that I was going to talk about, so there's no need to prolong being the question with my question. I do want to ask Ms. Carr, though, you haven't taken any money from EOC, have you?
No, sir, we have not.
I think we need to have that.
Only in her capacity as clerk of the board.
I think we need to put that officially in the minutes that we haven't, that we're not doing that. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Stokes.
Thank you, Mr. President. Explain how that process works.
Mr.
Mr. President, you ready to vote? Mr. President, I'm ready to vote. And as I stated earlier, that's why we need someone like this, because, I've talked to different people in different areas. Some say the law said it's supposed to go direct to EOC. Some say the law says to go to the county. But we don't have to worry about what some people are saying. We're going to have a roadmap where the money go, how it's collected, and everything else. So I'm ready for the vote, Mr. President, if you're ready to call the question.
Okay. Your question.
All money's coming into Hinds County has to come through the clerk's office.
Well, I'm just saying what they say state law says now, even though it's coming there. But some of the people that may not know, just give them a copy of the law. But that's why you need somebody to give us the law. You give us a copy of the law, we'll read it. That's all we need is a copy of the law.
Even though the money goes into her office, because she does the check, she signs the check. This woman is responsible for how the money will be spent.
Okay, it's been moved and properly second. Is Mr. Anderson still on the phone?
Mr. Anderson, are you still there? Yes, sir. He's here.
Okay. It's been moved and properly second. All those in favor of?
Yes.
Opposed to?
No.
Motion passes.
Mr. Anderson, how are you voting? Yes.
Okay, now how much are you charging us to do this?
Like you said, we're already under contract. We would just, based off the hourly rate we already have, we would move forward in that fashion.
Okay.
So what is the hourly rate?
Hold on. Let's get back in order before we do that. All right, Mr. Fisher, then we'll go back to Ms. Calhoun, and we'll go from there.
Yeah, Mr. Anderson, so I want to thank you for calling in, Mr. Anderson. And for your information, the matter that was under your name that you did not call in to vote on passed 4-0 on the board.
Okay. Mrs. Calhoun, do you have anything else? Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. We'll continue with our printed agenda.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Okay.
Mr. President, again, I'm not going to get into muddy waters on this here issue where we have lawsuits, but I spoke to Commissioner Epps about the regional jail. And his position is that they still will consider inmates and those kind of things. But the issue then came up again about it'll take a bond for that to happen. So I somewhat think that that's an issue that's not a real issue any longer. So I think the regional jail off the agenda because I do feel that, and I don't know, I haven't talked to anybody make absolutely sure, but I don't think it's going to happen. So I move, Mr. President, if I could, to the item with the reward, $20,000 for the information leading to the burning of the house. Mr. President, the largest town, population-wise, in the state of Mississippi, is something we should be proud of. But the criminal element with that Chicago mentality, burning people up in their sleep, can't be tolerated. This particular example happened after Marine Street incident behind the old Dr. Riley's building where the gentleman was killed, burning his sleep. They set your front door on fire, they set your back door on fire. Normally if you sleep, you won't wake up before the house is fully engulfed. The gentleman on Marine Street never woke up. We got to send a message to the criminals that we're not going to tolerate this insanity and that we're going to do anything in our power to catch you. The reward that we're offering will not affect this budget at all. We'll look at the arrest and conviction. And we're looking at the next budget year, the fund balance money that's not spent. But we can earmark this money for the reward. We got to do everything in our power to stop this insanity. Thank you.
Mrs. Calhoun?
The idea of awarding $20,000 for information regarding the burning of the house, I think it's an empathetic one, and I understand. However, there are hundreds of victims who have been burned out, murdered, robbed, and this board has not offered an award for the capture of individuals who have victimized these citizens. Again, I think it's an empathetic idea, and again, I understand that. I think if we do it for one citizen, $20,000, we should do it for all of the citizens. We should go back and look at the record and bring everybody up that's been homes that have been burned because of arson. You know, you just can't. I just don't see us favoring one individual when we have other victims in Harris County.
Okay. Mr. Fisher?
I agree. I think it's a good-hearted effort, and I think that there are some terrible issues in Jackson that are going on throughout the world that are going on. I just don't know how you pick and choose who you put a reward against and who you don't. Just recently, there was a news report. I think it was over the weekend. I caught the tail end of a young male who murdered an 80-year-old woman. I mean, there is no end to the tragedy, and there is no end to the terrible things that happen. But you know, as was pointed out earlier, the police department in Jackson's budget is bigger than the entire Hinds County budget. And I know they're overwhelmed, but they've got an unenviable task many nights, and I appreciate greatly what they do when any law enforcement officer does is they investigate murder, arson, whatever it might be. But I think that we have to answer this question first, is where do you draw the line? If you're going to do it here, do you do it every time one of us brings it up? Because pretty soon you're going to run into some pretty serious financial situations. I know public money, I think public money is used, and the sheriff and the Jackson police officer here on the crime watchers line.
That's what I was going to talk about.
I mean, there's a fund for that money's provided for, but I think I don't know that it's an open-ended fund.
It is.
And I don't know who finances it.
We do.
The city, the county?
The county and the city and all the municipalities of them.
Because you're looking at spending, I mean, and I think it's not used on every crime that's out there. So if the board chooses to move forward with this, I think we should set some sort of perimeters up from this program. because you could run into some money, some very expensive line item here on the board pretty quick. And I would hate to be that open-ended.
I think that we should commend Mr. Stokes for bringing this up. However, I do think that we need to utilize Crime Stoppers. We'll pay up to $2,500, and if a request is made by Mr. Stokes to the Crime Stoppers, which we do fund through money that's, I think it's $1 off of each ticket that's issued in Hinds County, then that reward can be increased through Crime Stoppers, and they have the money available to pay. We can request a $2,500 payment, and if Mr. Stokes would like to, we can ask for an additional amount of money that's done through Crime Stoppers, and the representative works for the Sheriff's Department. And so we can do that at any particular point in time as it relates to this particular issue, which I think is a good way of getting back some of the money that we put in there, because Hinds County and the City of Jackson pays the lion's share of money going into the Crime Stopper Fund. And I think it's a good way to get some of the money back and to utilize it for individual crimes such as this. But it's the pleasure of the board.
Mr. President, this is a new trend. It's just so happened this time it was Rob Jason, someone was not. But the demo on Marine Street, who was dating, I didn't know his name. And again, that's not District 5, that's District 3. But he's dating. The lady on Georgetown Avenue was Laura. She's dead. That's not District 5, that's District 3. Now, I can see that we may not have the votes today, but if we don't get these killers off the street, they're going to kill some more. Now, it sounds good that, no, we don't have the money and what we'll do, but it's because it's not our loved ones. If these were our loved ones, that's burned up in the house. Every time you see it, y'all feel cry. This lady, 80 plus, years young. And the only reason she knows she's alive today is because of the grace of God. Older people go to sleep early. She smelled the smoke and woke up. That's the only reason she's alive. If she had slept a little longer, she'll be dead today. And can't go back home. They got the house up for sale. House up for sale. And our neighborhood, you know, and everything else, because of some hoodlums who setting houses on fire. And we sitting here saying, where's the police department? This is Hinds County. This is Hinds County. The DA's office is under Hinds County. Public defender under Hinds County. The sheriff under Hinds County. And we have a right and an obligation to try to protect our citizens. But I see we don't have the votes today. I'll be glad to hold it. But we bringing it back. Thank you.
Okay. Mrs. Calhoun, and then we'll move on.
If you make a motion, I will second your motion to direct Supervisor Stokes' request to Crime Stoppers, and then let our law enforcement do the rest.
Okay. I will make the motion if that's found with Mr. Stokes, so where we do take some action and move through Crime Stoppers until we can find other means and ways and develop policies to do this.
Mr. President, I thank you so much for the motion, and any little bit is better than none. The reason we asked for $20,000 because it's easy to get crackheads and others to talk with that kind of money. The $2,500, they might talk, they may not talk, but people know some of these in the neighborhood. But I support it because it's a way to at least start the ball to roll. Thank you.
I also move that we ask a request from the Sheriff's Department a enhanced reward through Crime Stoppers for this particular issue.
Second.
It's been moved and properly seconded. All those in favor of?
Yes.
Opposed to? Motion passes. Okay.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Mr. Sheriff, is that working through your office, or we can make the request ourselves through Crime Stoppers if you like, or through your representative?
What I would like to do before y'all actually take a vote on the election you already have, that case happens belongs to Jackson Police Department, who has the same rights and responsibilities as Crime Stoppers. So before you take that vote, I would rather see if they've already made that attempt to go through Crime Stoppers, so we will be double dipping.
Okay.
If not, then we can do it through our investigation division.
We'll make it pending upon checking with the Jackson Police Department to see if that request has already been made through them.
Yes, because it's their case and they're working on it, so it's unrightful for us to communicate with them without stepping on their toes to proceed without double dipping until the Crime Stoppers fund.
Okay. All right, well, we'll make that motion. Brett, would you just please read that motion so everyone will be clear as to what we're going to do?
Is it still going to go through the sheriff's office?
Still go through the sheriff's office pending, making sure, I guess we're going to like our better word, that we
That you check with
check with the
JPD, the
police
request.
department.
The request has already been made, yes.
Correct.
Okay, so it's to direct through the sheriff's office to make a request to Crime Stoppers for a $2,500 reward for this crime that's on your agenda, pending checking with JPD to see if the request has already been made.
Correct.
But you also said, so I want to make sure that you want to enhance the amount.
That's correct. The only thing we do is to, and then because we can ask and they can enhance based upon the
So you
vote
want
of their
part of
board.
the motion to say that they
Yes.
also want to enhance.
Yes. Okay. All right.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Continue, Mr. Stokes.
Mr. President, the next item I asked Mr. Friedens to help us with this one. We were able to get some property in the inner city neighborhood from the state and use the recreation funds, keeping with the First Lady initiative of recreation and walking. We want to build a walking trail on this property. And Mr. Friedens had a chance to look at it. Want to put some numbers as to about how much it would cost, and the money will come from the recreation fund that we have.
$18,000.
$18,000. So moved, Mr. President.
It's been moved. Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved and properly second. All those in favor of?
Yes.
Opposed to? Motion passes.
These funds are already
Yes, same recreation.
Recreation fund.
The final item, Mr. President, I'm going to ask Mr. McQuaid to come forward. This is one of his known issues that he asked us to place it on the agenda, and he was out of town last week doing God's mission work. God bless you. I thought it was somebody said he was in another country. I just assumed it was mission work, but could you tell us what we are with this, please?
Good morning, Mr. President, Board of Supervisors. Thank you, Supervisor Stokes. We do have a special request from Mr. Gregory Moran of 3319 Chapel Hill Road, Utica, requesting the conditional use regarding the utilization of a FEMA trailer for the purpose of his home occupancy due to the fact that his home did burn down and he did receive one from a church to occupy and live in, and the zoning ordinance does not allow me the authority to grant that to him, so we brought it to Supervisor Stokes and this board, and it is our recommendation to grant it to him on a temporary basis for 1 year with an additional year extension based upon our review of the situation.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and properly second. Mr. Fishers?
This is outside activity.
Yes.
Yeah, it was outside the city activity.
Yes.
It doesn't interfere with anything that they have.
No.
You know, sometimes people will get into situations like this, and it just takes a while to build a house back. And they need they've got enough of bad break going on with burned up house. Now they need a little bit of help here. And, you know, for those people in the area that may hear about this and wonder, you know, the board set time limitations on it sufficient enough to build a house and also allow this individual an opportunity to get his life back in order and all his stuff back in one place. So I think I appreciate you bringing this to us and letting us know. Thank you.
Mr. Moran also called and expressed his appreciation to Supervisor Stokes for the request. He could not be here because of a surgery that he had, and so I told him we would still present it to him.
All those in favor of?
Yes.
Opposed to? Motion passes.
Mr. President, I want to thank Mr. McQuaid again because he said thank me. You know, a lot of things happen in the rural area. I asked Mr. Flowers to go and check, but it's up to his good leadership to kind of guide us to help citizens stay home. And I think that's what Supervisor Fisher was saying, because it's like a double leak. Y'all really burn out and you don't know where you're going to turn. But for someone with some compassion in your office saying, we want to help you, instead of making it 2 times harder on you, that we're able to help you. So keep up the good work.
That's not leaving out. Did you say you was in surgery today, you couldn't come?
All right.
I mean, it's a triple day.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank Mr. Fly for going out and looking and everything. Some of these roads in the rural, that I don't have a clue how to find. Thank you, Mr. President. That's it for me. I'm holding on the employee for the tax collector's office. And the jail, we don't have to go to closed session. And I think we discussed regional jail, so thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Stokes. We'll now go to the county administrator, Mrs. Carmen Davis. Mrs. Davis, good morning.
Good morning, thank you. First item on the county administrator is unclaimed bodies, however, none. Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you. First item under county administrator is unclaimed bodies. There are no unclaimed bodies for your consideration today. The second, I want to request approval to ratify the appointment of Ms. Ann Burton, private sector, Hinds County Project Head Start, and Mr. George S. Smith, 4th Sector Representative for District 5 to the Hinds County Human Resources Agency Board of Directors.
What's the pleasure of the board? Do we have to, is that something that you...
To ratify.
Okay, to ratify, okay. What's the pleasure of the board?
Second.
It's been moved and properly seconded.
Question, Mr. President.
Question for Mr. Stokes?
Ms. Davis.
Yes, sir.
Now I know George, Mr. Smith is not poor. How is he going to be the poor representation on that when you got others who really, this board is so important to really poor people who, as it was cold, didn't have any gas. And we need people who say, we don't want to sit on money, we need to spend the money. We're getting ready to go into the summer where they won't have air conditions. You know, if this going to be a working board, this is some kind of friendship board where they're just stopping people on there, but they're not concerned about helping the poor like it's set up to be. And the reason I ask that, because we place a lady on here, and as she go into communities and go to me, they try to tell her, you can't do that. How else does Hinds County Human Resource help people, but go into the neighborhoods and tell the poor people the funds that's available? And now we got appointments on here that's supposed to be from the poor section, and I remember when they created this law, you really had poor people representing Annie Carter and people like that. And now it's just a game. You putting people on who's not poor and saying, well, they represent the poor section. I think that's all it was. Thank you.
Ms. Davis, who made that request?
This was made by the Human Resource Agency Board of Directors. They have
Who is that individual?
This is the board itself, the Board of Directors. They, at large, appoint a certain number of representatives for their district, as well as each Board of Supervisors appoints a representative from your district.
Who is the chair for that particular, is what I'm trying to say.
I believe Mr. Cochran.
But is it mandatory that we approve?
They do require ratification.
Is that law?
On
I'm
that.
trying to say this.
I will have to verify the true direction as it relates to this action, but from my understanding, it is a ratification required from the board.
So it's already done.
It has been approved by the board. However, whatever they suggest for the board of directors, they have to get the board of supervisors ratification.
All right. It's been moved and properly seconded. All those in favor of? Aye. Opposed to?
No.
Motion passes. Okay, continue please.
Thank you. Next, we have Mr. Blake Wallace, Director of Hinds County Economic Development Authority, with one item for your consideration.
Good morning, Mr. President and members of the board. We just have the one item on the agenda this morning, and that is the retention of the $191,495 from a land sale that we did in Sonny McDonald Industrial Park. A portion of that to be used on our aerial photography project.
Okay, what's the pleasure of the board?
Move for approval.
It's been moved. Is there a second?
Second.
It's been been moved and properly seconded. All those in favor?
Question,
Question for Mr. Stokes.
Let me make sure I understand that. We sold some property for, what's the correct amount?
191,000, 470,
And we're
495.
gonna allow you to keep that total amount?
Yes, sir.
What about half, and half go to the general fund?
Well, whatever the board determines.
Well, I make a motion that we get half, to the Hines County Economic Development Authority and half come to the general fund.
And can it go to the general fund, or does it have to go to the debt service?
The board already has a motion that it was used for debt service unless the board wants to use it for fund or other purposes designated.
How is this going to work as it relates toward the debt, reducing the debt? Or how is it going to affect it if we do anything any differently than what he requests?
The debt service is intact for this year. Next year, if we have land sales, we will ask that it go to debt service. But this year, the board can use it for the, whatever it requests this year in terms of the area photography activities.
So it's already been designated for this year?
The debt service is already covered through the debt fund this year. And in future sales, we would ask that it go into the debt service.
Right, and we have agreed that any
We
future
had talked about
sales,
it earlier.
it would go to the debt service fund for the 94 bonds.
But let me ask this to clarify, Ms. Wood. If we can get half of this into the general fund, can we, and I'm trying to find enough money that we can get to cover what's there for paving streets. Could we use it for paving streets if we identify back to the general fund, or it could not be used for those purposes?
It would be, I guess it would be at the discretion of the board because there was no other money that could go to the photography, as I understood.
We got so many talking.
As I understood it from Mr. Wallace, there was no other money that could be designated for area photography, so the board would have to find another funding for the area photography.
Well, there's more money there than we need for the area photography. We would use it, the money that we would use would be in conjunction with continuing to do projects in the park and things like that. So the half of it won't cover it, but I think we have enough in our budget that we could do that, but it wouldn't cover the aerial photography project.
Okay, we'll go to Ms. Calhoun and then see if the clerk's office wants to weigh in on this issue.
I would like to see the fund stay with the Economic Development Authority because of the fact that we need to boost their budget a little bit in order to provide incentives and work toward attracting more businesses to the city, to the county.
Okay. Mrs. Carter, do you have something or that you want to add?
We were just trying to clarify something because the original contract was between the Hines County Board of Supervisors and Sanborn Map Company. So we're just trying to figure out how do we need to split it if we're doing it.
You all will pay the Sanborn Company, not the EDA.
Okay.
The area photography is with Sanborn and it's with the Hines County Board of Supervisors, not with the Economic Development Authority.
Let me make sure that what we do is that we dispose of the first issue, and then we'll see if Mr. Stokes' issue has enough with a vote of a second to change what we were originally trying to do. Now, Greta, would you state what the motion is on the floor, the original motion?
I'm assuming that Mr. Fisher's motion was to approve Mr. Wallace's request to allow them to retain that money. However, to retain the $191,000.
Okay, and Mrs. Calhoun, second. Okay, and now what we'll do is we'll dispose of this motion and see if Mr. Stokes would like to make a counter motion or to reconsider that particular vote to change anything else. We now have a motion and a second on the floor. All in favor of? Opposed to?
No.
Motion passes. All right, Mr. Stokes, do you want to make an additional motion or to ask us to reconsider to where?
Well, yes, sir. I would hope that we would, the motion I would make would be for the half of these funds to go to the general fund in an effort to try to generate some money for public works. And we need to earmarked for paving streets. The major complaints we hear is that there's not enough streets being paved in Hinds County. And some of the workers even gone as far as to say that people are leaving Hinds County because of the streets. And, you know, I can't do anything but listen. I haven't talked directly to Mr. Freedoms. But I know that when they say that streets need to be paved in Hinds County, then it's a major issue. And any funds, and that's why I'm hoping we can look to try to identify other funds also. Any funds that we can get to help with paving these streets, we need to try to find it. We need to do it now before the weather break when we start to pave the streets. So I would really like to give our money that we can get, and we'll go to the general fund specifically for paving streets. Thank you.
Okay. A motion has been made before we ask for the second. We have Mr. Fisher and Ms. Calhoun.
I'm going to ask for a second.
Okay.
We know for sure.
Okay. It's been moved. Is there a second? Is there a second? Is there a second? Motion dies for a lack of a second. Mr. Fisher, do you want to comment? Then Ms. Calhoun, is that for what you're relating?
Well, I think my comment was going to be more of a longer range situation. Back in our history, in 2008, that board took how much was it, Mr. Felix, out of the paving budget to prop up the general fund?
It's close. Between $500,000 to $800,000.
$500,000 to $800,000. I think that before we start piecemealing money and we can grab it from here or over there, we should restore back to the Public Works Department the money that was taken from the general fund back to the Public Works Department for that purpose in a permanent way versus looking for funds here and there every year and struggling and fighting for it. I think we have a situation here that the previous board created, and it needs to be addressed in a long-term solution before we start trying to cherry pick and add to it. And I know now's not the time to do that. Only during the budget proceedings is that time to do that. I bring it up every year, and we don't seem to get there. But that's the time I think to fix it and make whole again the paving fund of the Public Works Department.
Okay. That's the reason why I think it's a good idea what we did today as it relates to a financial planner, because I'm hearing long-term strategy, I'm hearing funds and things of that particular nature. Hopefully this is what this particular financial plan that Mr. Stokes brought to the board will do, is to give us some idea as to whether or not we do need to take half or we don't need to take half of the money that's being presented for the economic development in other areas of the county. But I think that will give us a roadmap as to what we need to do as it relates to just issues just that you're bringing to the board right now. We know you need money, but Mr. Stokes also has stated that Mr. Felix needs money, and Mr. Fisher has brought this back every year saying we need to pave more streets. And so that's the reason for having this financial strategy that we have that will give us some ideas of where we need to go. Mrs. Calhoun?
The motion fails, so there's no need to comment.
Okay. Anything else, Mr. Wallace?
I think they got something.
I wanted to get clarity on the contract because I think the sale of the contract for the aerial photography was supposed to be coming from that money.
We're going to transfer that money over.
Okay, I want to make sure that it was in the minutes if that was going to be transferred back to cover that contract.
Okay.
Yeah, it's actually the motion that I made was that we're keeping the money, but we're going to pay for the aerial contract.
Okay.
And we're still tracking that through, so it's going to be a little while before we get the bill on that.
All right. Thank you very much, Mrs. Davis. Continue.
Thank you. The next item, and before I go to the next item, I want to make a correction to a question that was asked to me. Who was the chairperson of the Human Resource Agency? It is Wayne Goodwin. He is the chairman, the board chairman. So I want to make sure I clarify the record.
Okay.
He's the executive director, yes, so I apologize for that. The next item on the agenda is from Mr. Darrell McWhirter, Director of the Permanent Zoning Department, with one item for your consideration.
Mr. President, Board, we have one case number U-1716, Mr. and Mrs. Ulysses Wade, requesting the rezoning of their property from agricultural to a special use district to allow for a family cemetery on agriculturally zoned property. This property consists of 3.4 acres located on the north side of Tank Road between Dry Grove and Chapel Hill Road. There is a misprint in there. The actual amount that is being rezoned is 0.3 acres. The Planning Commission granted this petition by a vote of 7 yeas and 1 abstain. There was public opposition. The Wades are here if you have any additional questions for them. I do not think there's any public opposition.
Okay, what's the pleasure of the board?
So moved.
It's been moved. Is there a second? Is there a second? I'll second it. It's been moved and properly second. Mr. Fisher?
Just a matter of procedure. I'd like to hear what the District 5 supervisor has to say about it. This is an issue in his district. He was not present in the meeting for an issue in his district. Then he called in to vote on another issue.
No.
Now he's not
I'm
present.
here.
District 5.
Okay.
Thank you. Again, I think Mr. McQuaid, I had a chance to go to the location to see it, and it brings tears to your eyes because this is a family that has purchased land for a family cemetery. And those things you don't really, see in the long run. And it's behind another cemetery. It's not like it's going to affect anybody or do anything to anybody. It's right there by Mount Wade Church. But, a lot of families they want to make sure that when they gone, that their children and their children's children can all rest together. And, I went out there and I met with the family. I went to look at the cemetery and the land. And again, you're right, it's not 3.4 acres. It's a little small thing. It's 0.3 acres. It's just big enough for a cemetery on the backside of the cemetery in Mount Wade. So I just thank that family for caring about other family members. And I think they moved back to the family area from Copiah County. And they came back home and they no one is trying to leave here, but they're trying to make preparations that when they're gone, that the family will still be together to return. Thank you, Mr. President.
Okay. All those in favor of? Excuse me, Mr. Fisher.
Clarification, still the cemetery
Yes.
next to it. I mean, we're talking like across the fence down next to it. I mean, just a little bit down.
They don't really join. Yeah.
What was the opposition about then?
One gentleman expressed opposition that a second cemetery would perhaps decrease the value of his property. And the other was just clarification on family. What entails a family? Would it be their immediate family, brother, sister, mother, son, daughter, grandchildren, or anybody with that last name? Those were pretty much the opposition.
I think the second question is a good question. That's up to the family to decide. And I don't see how the property values can go down if there's already a cemetery. It's right there. I don't understand.
Right. That was
it sounds like there's a very legitimate opposition to
right. That was expressed in the public hearing. That
okay.
Commissioners.
All those in favor of?
Yes.
Opposed to? Motion passes.
And we left out, they live right there adjacent to the property. They right there at the property and everything. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. Mrs. Davis, continue.
Thank you. Next, we have Mr. Clarence Williams, Director of Human and Capital Development, with items for your consideration.
Good morning, Mr. President. I have 4 items, except the item D will be removed for consideration at a later meeting.
Okay. Continue.
The first one is acceptance of a grant from the Mississippi Department of Environmental Quality in the amount of $75,000 for the GSU obsolete computer recycling program.
So moved.
It's been moved. Is there, been moved and properly second. All those in favor of?
Yes.
Opposed to?
Question, Mr. President.
Question from Mr. Stokes and Mr. Fisher.
Now, we're accepting this grant for $75,000, right?
Yes.
Now, we've heard people in places that need some of these computers. What's the procedure to get them to donate some of these computers to needed? I think some of them may be senior citizen centers that might need it. Is that what Ms. Frank Love Center? We meet with some people, they need some computers, and I told them about this program.
I can provide a contact number, but essentially what they do is they call in and pretty much go on the waiting list because the demand has been so high. They really rely on someone else donating obsolete computers that they can refurbish and then and give out.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Mr. Fisher.
And building on that question, a few years ago, I got some really good information on that program from JSU. It talks about the numbers of computers and all of the facets of what they do.
Mm-hmm.
Can you ask them to update that information and send it to each of the board members along with the contact numbers so that we can pass that on?
Sure.
But this is one of the, this is actually a very positive program in the county that I really don't know that a lot of folks are aware of. And I think that this is the sort of thing that we need to get out. And if possible, put it on our webpage if it's not already on there. If it is, I haven't been able to find it, but that's not saying it's not on there.
It's not.
But to put that on there with a link so that others can read about this program as it progresses, maybe have JSU updated on a regular basis, numbers given out each year, and that sort of thing. And I also believe it's a training ground
Yes,
for
they do.
the students
Yes, sir.
who are going into that trade, so they're also getting practical, not trade in that world, but they're getting a practical application of what their careers are going to be. So if they can give us some updated information on that, I like that, because I think that's one of the really positive programs that is going on here.
In fact, what I'll do, they do a quarter report to MBQ, and I'll have them forward that quarter report.
Okay. I think that after today, Mrs. Davis will be taking a very comprehensive, quick look at our website to make sure that it's where it needs to be. Thank you very much. Continue.
The next one, we received a list of grants that the sheriff wanted to get approval to submit. For the grants, were deadlines had passed before this particular meeting, so I'm requesting retroactive approval of the following grant applications on behalf of the Sheriff's Department, which were submitted by the Sheriff to the Board President on January 28, 2013. There are no match requirements for any requested items. The first is NRA Gun Safe Program Grant application in the amount of $10,000. The second is Homeland Security Grant application for terrorism prevention in the amount of $50,000. The third is Zero Tolerance Cultures for Sexual Abuse Program Grant application in the amount of $300,000. And GRO 1000 Grassroots Grant Program application in the amount of $1,500.
So moved.
It's been moved. Is there a second? It's been moved and properly second. All those in favor of?
Yes.
Opposed to? Motion passes. Okay. Continue.
Mr. Fisher, did you have a question?
Me? No.
And the last is approval of a list of future grant application request applications on behalf of the Sheriff's Department, which were submitted by the Sheriff's Department to the Board President on January 28, 2013. There are no match requirements for any of the requested items, and I think I provided a list of those for you.
It's been moved. Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved and properly second. All those in favor of?
Yes.
Opposed to? Motion passes. Continue. Is that it?
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mrs. Davis, continue.
I'm sorry, Mr. Williams, did you do the Homeland Security?
No, we're going to do that at a future meeting. I asked him.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry. Okay, thank you. Okay, next we have Mr. Timothy Lewis, purchasing clerk, with one item for your consideration. While he approaches the podium, I will share with you this item has not been distributed, so I apologize, but I'm sure you'll be happy to know this is relative to video arraignment. We are coming very, 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 very close to completing this project. So even over the weekend, while I was out of town at a conference, staff was putting together the final package. We've had the vendors out at the facility, finalizing what all needs to be done for the setup, for the electrical connections, and the proper equipment. And so we've been working all the way up to this board meeting. So I apologize that you don't have the information, but we need your approval for the selection of the vendor who has provided us what we believe is the best comprehensive setup and components for this project, the video arraignment, as well as moving forward to a lease agreement. And so Mr. Lewis is handling that. He will share the details with you. As soon as you pass, we will fulfill the PO, and the vendor is waiting to come out to bring the equipment.
Hold on 1 second. It's been moved and properly seconded. All those in favor of?
Yes.
All right, motion passes. You can go ahead and advise us what it is that you're giving us the details.
Mr. Lewis, where's the system lighted up? Motion's passed.
Let us do point one thing.
I sure appreciate that.
For the nature of procedure and clarity, we would like to purchase this through a lease purchase. So we do need your approval for the lease purchase agreement. The lease purchase agreement has been submitted to the board attorney for approval. So we can have that approved pending board
What kind of
attorney.
time frame on the lease purchase?
For the lease purchase?
Yeah.
Oh, that would move forward. The lease purchase is through the same company as providing us the
Come at
equipment.
3 years, 4 years?
Oh, it's a 3 years, 36 months.
That's what we just voted on. We're finished
No,
with
you
them.
voted on the state
So
contract.
moved.
Right.
It's been moved. Is there a second? I'll second. It's been moved and properly seconded. All those in favor of?
Yes.
Opposed to? Motion passes. The reason why this is so important is this is going to save the county, I just don't know how much money. And this is something that the police department, the county, has been working on for 15 years. And that's the reason why I want to make sure that it gets done, video arraignment. And I think that the board will be very pleased with knowing that we have this
Well,
out of the
then you
way.
have a- then you have a typo.
President, I know I thought they were already doing this is a
No.
video arraignment and.
No, that's the reason why it's so important
And all
that we
three
get it done
are on
today.
state
because
contract?
of that.
Judge Green had spoken about it.
Okay.
I thought
Then
they had
you
already
need to
started
do the
it.
rest of those.
Some judges back and
No, we've been waiting on this for 15 years.
Next
Okay,
time, just
Mr.
put
Lewis,
the
if you
state
would go
contract
ahead and,
company. Okay.
before we get this
Or
done,
redo it.
and let's go
Do
and
it
get
that
it
way.
done.
Board President, we have one more item for your consideration. It's an emergency purchase that was done on Sunday, well, actually Monday, February the 16th, and we could not get two quotes on it, so upon an emergency purchase, and that's what we put it up under. It's $100 that we need to render to Simplex Grinnell for the work that they did at Young Young Justice Center.
It's been moved and properly
You don't
seconded.
have to move. It's an emergency purchase.
Yeah, there's no action need to be taken on this.
Anything else?
That's it.
Okay,
Thank you, sir.
What was the emergency?
They had sprinkler heads was torn up, so they had to replace them. We got 3 of them.
All right, Mrs. Davis, continue.
Thank you.
You want me to do that? And just put the state contract.
Ms. Woods.
No item under Ms. Woods.
What?
That concludes county administrator items. We do have 2-minute assertions. However, no board approval is required.
Okay.
Thank you.
Before we move on, let me just ask one additional question. The time frame or the time lag for us actually seeing the video arraignment in working, in process, in operation, we're looking at hopefully before the end of the month?
In operation, I don't believe in operation. I believe within 2 weeks we will have the equipment installed. After the equipment is installed, there will be training. Staff need to be trained on the equipment and how to operate it, which the vendor said will take probably about 8 days at the most. And once the 8 days is over, I'm hoping by no later than mid-March, we'll have it fully operational.
Can we make it happen sooner?
We'll move as fast as we can. I'll get the vendors on it right away.
Thank you very much. We'll now go to Mr. Tony Gaylor, interim board attorney. Mr. Gaylor, good morning.
Good morning. Good morning. First,
item I'd like to present to the board with regard to, under the resolutions, with regard to the video arraignment that you just approved, just approving the authorizing the board president to execute a resolution that awards the project to Venture Technologies.
So moved. Second. It's been moved and properly second. All those in favor of?
Yes.
Opposed to? Motion passes.
The next matter is under tax matters. There is an amended order that the board needs to adopt, which changes the order that canceled a tax sale some time ago from the Mississippi Society for Disabilities. A long time ago, there was the board authorizing the order that canceled a tax sale because they are a nonprofit entity, and they had property that was sold at a tax sale in 2007 and 2008. And so this amended order would void tax sales for 2007 and 2008, whereas the previous order actually said that there was a tax sale in 2011, which didn't take place. So this was just a correction of that order that the board adopted several months ago.
So is there a motion required, or does that suffice, just informing suffice?
It's necessary to adopt a motion for the amended order.
It's been moved and properly second. Questions?
Is there any liability in terms of it was sold?
Well, what's going to happen is that within that previous order, the Hinds County tax collector was directed to refund taxes in the amount of $3,566.31. And so this just clarifies that.
How did it get on the road if it was a non-profit?
That was the question back then. I'm not sure exactly how that took place, but this corrects that.
So they off the road for good?
Yes.
Okay.
It prevents there from being future matters like this.
All those in favor of?
Yes.
Opposed to? Motion passes.
The next matter is a tax abatement and exemption, which came from the Economic Development Authority with regard to Philip Morris USA, just approving their tax exemption that they applied for some time ago.
So moved.
It's been moved and properly second. All those in favor of?
Yes.
Opposed to? Motion passes.
Where are they located?
They are located. Trying to see here. At 3974 South Highway 55 Frontage Road.
Thank you.
And we do have a matter for executive session with regard to the Byron Clinton corridor right-of-way acquisition.
Okay. Is that it?
That's all.
Thank you very much. We appreciate that, Mr. Gaylor. Now we'll go to Mr. Mark Young, QLC Director. Mr. Young, good morning.
Good morning. Good morning, Supervisors. Good morning. First, we have an approval of internship for a student from Jackson State University for the Department of Emergency Management during the months of March and April 2013. Jackson State University will be responsible for the salary of this person while they're in the department.
So moved.
It's been moved. Is there a second? It's been moved and properly second. All those in favor of?
Yes.
Opposed to? Motion passes.
The second one I'd like to table until I have sit down and talk with each one of you until next time.
Okay. Continue, please.
Number 3 is CPR class to be held in Emergency Management Center on March the 7th and the 8th, 2013. This was finished Public Works Department. I think they have about 50 to 60 members need to complete class, so we will be completing Public Works this month.
It's been moved. Is there a second? It's been moved and properly second. All those in favor of?
Yes.
Opposed to? Motion passes. Would you make sure that you advise each board member or forward to each board member the results of this particular training session and what the objectives were?
Yeah, should we?
Okay. Thank you. Continue, please.
That's all I have.
Thank you very much. We'll now continue with the county road manager, Mr. Fredericks. Mr. Fredericks. Why are you coming, Mr. Fredericks? I know there's been a passion of Supervisor Fisher as well as Supervisor Stokes, well, I guess of everyone, including Supervisor Calhoun, regarding paving streets. Can you put together a report for a subsequent meeting as to what we can do as a county to see or try to make sure that we pave more roads in Hines County, and if there's any other monies that can be identified, or how much money's been, how many streets have been paved in the past. You gave me some information. I just want to make sure that the rest of the board has that information about how much money the city is spending on paving roads and how much they should be spending. And I just want to make sure that we have some ideas how much the county should be spending as it relates to paving roads and streets in Hines County.
Certainly.
Even though that all of my district is in District 1 is inside the city, although the supervisors have it outside of the incorporated area. Mrs. Calhoun and then Mr. Stokes.
I thought this board just hired Malachi Group to provide all this.
Yeah, but they don't have any expertise regarding paving streets. That was the financial portion of it. Mr. Fisher.
Thank you. Mr. President, I think the city just did $10 million in their bonds to pave streets. And I would hope that through your leadership and with Mr. Freeland, that we can talk with the city, because the county has equipment and we have manpower. And the city probably we could work some kind of deal where they can pay the county to help pay some of these streets. And the county work is great. It's not like you get inferior work. You get a private company that work is better, it's going to last longer. It's just someone needs to get to the city to get them to understand it's a win-win to work with Hines County. We can get more bang for the buck, as they say. We can get more streets paved, plus the county can reap some benefits, and we can get more streets in the rural area paved. But that's $10 million that if we could. It's going to be on the streets in the next, I guess, months. And instead of them going out for billions, if they could do a joint venture with Hines County, it'll benefit everyone.
Okay. Correct, I believe that's as well. Mr. Briggs, go ahead. Oh, I'm sorry, Mr.
They should
Fisher.
make this report back to the county, the board about paving. Would you give some background information to cost per mile, those sorts of facts and figures, for cost per mile for a 2-inch overlay, and just kind of the one-on-one on paving, so that the guy I always like to use, so I could go to a homeowners association and speak about it, in 5 minutes and cover it.
Certainly.
I think that, if you say, well, we're going to put $3 million in paving, the next logical question is, well, how much are you going to pay? Well, if we know how much it is a mile, we can do the math real quick and figure that out. Just that type of information, so that we have a basis to go in when we talk to groups, and we won't have to be calling you all the time on that.
I'll give you a full synopsis.
Good, thank you.
The last thing, Mr. Felix, while we are loading you up, we want to make sure we get you good and loaded. What about I think that they've contacted, they meaning this business here in the city has contacted the other supervisors, Polyvault. Would you include in there as to whether or not you think that that's a good idea, as to whether or not we should be doing it, even though that we already have paved one street in Hines County, actually in the city of Jackson, using that particular product, whether or not it's a good product to use?
It's a good product.
It's a rubberized product that's used for paving streets.
Right.
Okay. So would you include that so the board members would have some idea? Sure. Thank you. Go ahead, please.
First item is approval to attend the Association of Floodplain Managers Conference on April 29th to May 2nd in Natchez, Mississippi by way of county vehicle.
So moved.
It's been moved. Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved and properly second. All those in favor of?
Yes.
Opposed to? Motion passes.
Second item is approval to purchase a bucket truck at a cost of $42,500, $22,500 from the general fund unappropriated funds, and $20,000 from the Public Works Department surplus funds.
Okay. It's been moved. Is there a second?
I second the motion. This is a key safety issue
Yes.
that we need to address. So I'll step out of my norm of not wanting to spend anything out of the unappropriated surplus for this, because this is pretty important that we do this.
Do you want to pay all of it?
No.
All those in favor? All those in favor of?
Yes.
Opposed to? Motion passes. That's a very good acquisition. Thank you. Okay. We'll now go to the Honorable Miss Eddie Jean Carr, Chancery Clerk of Hines County.
Mr. Lewis for that purchase yet?
We haven't done it.
Yeah. Okay. This is just to appropriate the money?
Right.
Okay.
Yes.
You'll be getting a phone call very soon.
Okay, thank
All
you.
right. We need to make that obligation in order to make sure they're still on hand.
Okay,
All
thank
right.
you. Well, they're not actually, oh, I'm sorry. They're not actually purchasing it at this point.
Correct.
Good morning again, Mr. President, members of the board. We have one additional item that's not on there, which is an additional claims order for the approval of the AT&T claims. So we presented that claims approval order for those AT&T claims for your approval at this time.
What's the pleasure of the board?
That's what I asked about earlier. And y'all told me I voted. I knew I hadn't voted.
We
voted.
voted
It's just
to
one
approve
of
the
the-
claims. You didn't approve the order.
Okay, it's been moved. Excuse me, what's the pleasure of the board?
I move for approval.
It's been moved. Is there a second? I'll second. It's been moved and properly second. All those in favor of? Opposed to?
No.
Motion passes.
Thank you very much. We're going to pass over item number 1. We have orders canceling tax sale, authorizing refunds, reassessment changes to the assessment roll for your approval.
Okay, what's the pleasure of the board?
Move for approval.
It's been moved. Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved and properly second. All those in favor of? Opposed to? Motion passes.
Thank you very much. We have orders approving the addition and deletions of the supplemental roll for homestead exemptions for the year 2012 for your approval.
So moved.
It's been moved. Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved and properly second. All those in favor of?
Yes.
Opposed to? Motion passes.
We'll pass over item number 4. We have minute insertions as listed on your agenda. No action is required on your part.
Thank you very much.
Question.
Question from Mr. Stokes.
Thank you. First one is publication, proof of publication for the youth detention center. Now, Hines County Detention Center. When will that come before this body?
Is Mr. Lewis?
That should be,
For full privatization.
yeah.
There's a timeline, Mr. Lewis, if he's here, can give us that particular. Mr. Frank Jackson's here. Frank, do you have an idea when that's coming?
March
The actual legal publication, that's done. As a matter of fact, the responses were in. We had a pretty good meeting, and the site surveys are starting today at all the locations.
March 13th.
March 13th.
How many bids came in?
The bids didn't come in yet. They won't
Not
come
till
in
March
until
13th.
Oh, they come in on March
March
13th.
13th.
So, what have you done? So, come to the microphone.
They're going to the
I don't have all the information with me, but the bids will take place on March 13th. But there's 9 vendors involved that's starting site surveys today, and they run through Saturday the 25th. Okay? And there's out of the vendors, they're all national companies with the exception of 2, and there are 2 smaller vendors, to give you an idea. But you got a lot of response from it, and a lot of interest in the bid itself. So
Now, the youth detention center, is that included?
that's correct.
It's not in this, right?
In the legal publication, is that what you're asking?
It is part of the bid process. So they'll
You say Hines County.
All 4 locations are included.
Okay, all right. Now, when did we approve the contract on the C with A&R?
That's I don't think we're talking
Yeah.
about it. It's talking to Ms. Davis.
Yes, I'll have Mr. Bryant to explain that. Well, he monitors the
Thank you, Frank.
contract.
Good morning, Mr. President, Board Member. To answer the question, Mr. Stokes, back in August, a letter was sent out, certified mail to each supervisor, board attorney, and the county administrator. And it states in the contract, if there's no opposition posted or heard from, that it would automatically renew.
What kind of contract? Who do that kind of contract there?
The board attorneys and some of you.
So we don't need.
No, I'm not saying.
It's all right, thank you. That's fine. I just read that committee research.
That's how it comes about.
I know Mr. Gaylor is saying it wasn't.
No.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you very much. We'll now go back to Mr. Gaylor for recommendation to go into executive session. Request.
We need a motion to consider.
Okay, it's been moved. Is there a second? I'll second. It's been moved and properly second. All those in favor of? Opposed to? Motion passes. For the purpose of, we need a motion to go into executive session. It's been moved for the purpose of
Discussions regarding the transaction of business and discussion regarding prospective purchase, sale, or leasing of land.
Okay. Need a second?
Mr. Stokes items also?
I don't really think, I look at Mr. Jenkins, because, Mr. Jenkins, do you want to discuss? We don't have to go in there for that, Mr. President, because I think we all on the same page in terms of us feeling that something got to be done and got to be our time.
Okay, I'll second it. All in favor of?
Yes.
Opposed to?
Who did the second?
I did. Motion passes. We'll now go into executive session at 11:46.
Can you pay? Let's go. Let's go.
Yes, I'm telling
Under 18, they gave.
Nothing tricky about it.
Whether it's her money or their money, she still gets all.